Okay, I think we're on. All right, this is it. This is the very first Refined Geekery Google Plus Hangout, and it took us about 2, 3 hours combined to figure out how to do this stupid thing. But
Yeah,
we're here,
thanks, Google.
and it's 2013 coming to an end. I am Tom, and with me, as always, with Refined Geekery is Mike. Hello,
All right.
Mike.
All right. So, Tom, before we get any further, I want you to go to our website and click on the first post.
Click on the very first post on our website. Okay, go into it. Holy shit! That's awesome.
Congratulations.
We are now refinedgeekery.com.
Yeah, we just leveled up and ditched the WordPress. So, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. Refined
Yeah.
Geekery is now refinedgeekery.com.
Nice. Stupid WordPress.
Yeah.
Well, no, not
No.
the WordPress is stupid, but we got rid of the stupid WordPress on our URL.
Yeah. WordPress has been awesome, but getting rid of the clunky URL and going pro.
All right, awesome. So we're gonna basically wrap up 2013 here and say hello to 2014. But before we do, like we do with the podcast, we're gonna do a little shout out to a few different products that we like. Uh, Last time we had our podcast, we were drinking Block 3 Mustache Brown Ale, I believe. And this time I got myself a growler, once again, of Block 3. This is their Saison, and it is awesome. It's light. It's kind of like a wheat beer, but it is just straight up delicious. I love it.
And while Tom's drinking there, I'm settling in with a Muskoka Roastery Coffee Company Loon Call Breakfast Blend Coffee. And it is Rainforest Alliance certified, so relatively fair trade, it looks like, for sustainable agriculture.
Nice.
Delicious coffee. I drink it every morning for breakfast. Love it.
Awesome. I am getting drunk, and you are getting more and more in tune
Dangerously
with the universe
sober.
through caffeine. Awesome. Okay, so we decided that we were going to break this down. Instead of doing a top 5 list or something like that, which we will be doing on the site later on, we are going to come up with basically a this is what surprised us and this is what disappointed us over the course of year 2013. And we're going to look at movies and games, basically, although if you want to throw in other things that surprised you or disappointed you, feel free.
Mhm.
But let's start off with movies.
Yeah.
Because we're more games people, but lately the content on our website has been significantly pushed towards movies. But it's the end of the year and it's Christmas, and there's a lot more Christmas movies than there are Christmas games. But let's start off with movies. And what would you say were the biggest surprises for you in movies this year?
Yeah, we were just looking back at some of the ones that were released in 2013, and I don't know if it was my biggest surprise, but movie I loved the most absolutely was Gravity. It was amazing to see a completely new property, a completely original movie be done so well and actually do succeed so well, and I loved it.
Yeah, well, and as we were saying before we got into this, like it's hard to call that a surprise because it's
Mhm.
Alfonso Cuarón, and he's basically been responsible for making some of the best movies that I've seen in the last 10
Yeah,
years.
absolutely.
Primarily with Children of Men, which I put up there as probably in my top 10, maybe even top 5 movies of all time. He just knows science fiction and he does it so well.
I think where it's a surprise is the fact that it actually made it as a Hollywood movie,
Yeah,
given the fact that it was two actors, it was the
and
subject
it,
material was completely unique. It wasn't a blockbuster. It was,
and it was heady, it was
yeah,
intelligent,
yeah.
and while you could nitpick about certain things in the science, they did their research, and it was
Mhm.
clear that they were not making a dumbed down version of space.
Oh no, it was in fact probably the most realistic depiction of space that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um,
What
so I
I
it was more surprised that it actually was made, actually succeeded in Hollywood and did well, and I think that's a good sign, hopefully, for movies to come. Because I'm getting pretty sick of sequels, and the generic hero movies are even starting to bother me. So
Yeah, agreed.
yeah,
I would say probably the biggest surprise for me from Gravity was the fact that I actually enjoyed a performance from Sandra Bullock.
yeah, yeah.
I am not a fan of at all.
Generally, no, but I mean, I guess she deserves some of the awards that she's been given for what she's done.
Definitely. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, she held that movie by herself for a
Oh,
good
absolutely.
chunk of it, and without
And
going into spoiler territory, it's not easy, I would imagine, to basically have to own a stage all by yourself and act all alone,
yeah,
and primarily around green screen.
yeah,
And she does a fantastic job.
yeah, absolutely agree.
Clooney is Clooney in it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, he's still Clooney.
But
Yeah,
he's so, but he's. I love Clooney, so I am more than happy to watch Clooney be Clooney. And this is Clooney in space.
yeah, Clooney in space. And what was your biggest surprise?
Okay, so the biggest surprise I had, and like this is by no means, I would never consider this to be the greatest movie of the year, but it was probably the most surprising in the level of enjoyment that I had with it, was the Wolverine.
Yeah,
I was so after X-Men Origins, the Wolverine was I could not stand that movie at all. I was ready to give up on that section of the X-Men franchise. I totally bought into First Class and that generation of people, but I was willing to say goodbye to everything from the Patrick Stewart side.
yeah,
And yet this movie pulled me right back in. Like it understood that the Wolverine is like Logan is a complex character. It does a great job establishing like a lot of the Wolverine mythos in Japan, which I always thought was some of the most fascinating stuff with X-Men and Wolverine. I had these trading cards as a kid, were Wolverine trading cards, and half of them were of these awesome art shots in Japan.
oh,
And yeah, it was so cool. It was so well done. The CG looked kind of crappy with Silver Samurai at a few points, but overall, I would say like it was probably as and I mean we can get into this. I know you and I disagree with Man of Steel, but um, I would say that it is neck and neck for me with those two movies for what were my favorite superhero movie of the year. Because yeah, I just thought it was so surprisingly good.
yeah, I
And
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I expected so little of it, which is why I think it was so good. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
and I just like all the side like the supporting cast was great,
Hmm.
and you know it would it was a typically un-Fox movie, sort of like what we were saying with Gravity. Fox, to think that Fox would put out a movie where there is only one, basically only, well, no, I guess two with the one villain lady, but two white people in the whole entire
Yeah,
movie.
that's unusual for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I had a couple surprises as well that kind of grabbed me the same way. One of them I forgot to mention earlier, but one of them was one I think you mentioned to me, Hellbenders. I don't know if that came out in 2013, but I certainly
yeah.
watched it in 2013, and that surprised the shit out of me. That was a great movie. Did you
I,
see that?
I still haven't seen it. I once I saw the trailer, and
Yeah.
that's the one with Clancy Brown, right?
Yeah, it's it's a very low budget indie horror. I guess you would call it a horror, featuring a couple
Well, like
different actors. I couldn't even remember their names, but Tom Clancy's in it. And they're basically exorcists, and
Clancy Brown, Clancy
yeah,
Brown, not
Clancy
Tom
Brown.
Clancy.
Um, they're basically exorcists, and go watch the trailer. You'll understand the movie
Yeah,
from there if you see.
I saw that trailer and I remember forwarding it to you
Yeah,
immediately because it kind of gave me a John dies at the end kind of vibe, like just
yeah.
let's give the afterlife a middle finger basically.
Let's just throw as much crazy shit at the wall and see what sticks. And some of it does, some of it doesn't. It's worth it though. Absolutely worth a watch.
Okay, well let's get into disappointments though, and I think both of us are pretty much in agreement with at least one of these, and like that for me the biggest disappointment. As in, it was a movie that I just looked forward to so much leading up to it, but just completely left heartbroken, was Pacific Rim.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was cheesy. I thought it was poorly written. I thought it was poorly acted, and essentially a kids movie.
Well, yeah, and but you know what? Like I could tolerate a kids movie.
Yeah.
It's just the ham-fistedness of the story that they tried to wedge in there. I
Hmm.
mean, a good kids movie, if you look at, I guess if you look at what Transformers, the ideal Transformers movie would be just, the Transformers fighting. If you were to
Yeah.
boil this down to what would have made an awesome kids movie, would be just the robots versus monsters fighting, and that's all we wanted
Yeah.
from that movie. And they're like, no, let's give you like this Top Gun side plot of, you
Oh,
know, one pilot not liking another pilot because he's a hothead or something like that.
oh yeah, it was every cheesy cliche that you could ever find in any
So
movie that I've ever seen. I mean, it was just every trope, every cliche, and
yeah,
it just bothered me to no end that the only way to motivate anyone to progress in the story was for one person to yell at another person about, it was so cheesy. There was no real originality to the script part of it. It was kind of like seeing Transformers the first time, the Michael Bay one, when you're like, get the
yeah.
effing humans off the screen and just let the robots fight. Like,
Uh, yeah, Michael Bay says that he's learned from that, and apparently he's not going to be showcasing the humans as much in his Transformers 4. But
I, you know,
I have no faith in that franchise anymore. But it's like
yeah,
I it's Guillermo del Toro who has come up with some great stories in his time. Once again, this guy knows science fiction. I can't help but feel like, well, no, I don't know what happened for this movie to lose course so easily.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I sort of saw it in Hellboy 2, where he did get a little cheesy. It did get a little much. So I don't know if just given more free reign, that's where he tends to go.
He's
I mean, the idea is perfect. I mean, it was just the execution of the idea. It was just too cheesy for me, unfortunately.
he's certainly sentimental, and
Yeah,
he's clearly an emotional guy.
yeah,
But I mean, even with Hellboy, I thought, well, the love story just didn't seem to fit the plot. It's not like it was a bad love story. Like this was just a bad story.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this, well, no, the root story, like the Lovecraftian monsters and us having to fight them. That's awesome. But like, it's I don't know. It's as if they thought that if you just have monsters beating up robots for 2 hours, that people wouldn't like that. Like they'd be wondering who the humans are. And no, no, nobody
Nope,
cares.
don't even care.
No.
Have battle because the effects looked amazing. Everything about that looked great. Even the world was great.
Yeah,
It was just that cheesiness that I couldn't handle.
yeah. Do you have any other disappointing movies?
I have a handful, but I don't think it would do any service to mention them. I mean, there was a couple that I want to do well in terms of franchises, and I don't want to drag them down into that. But
Yeah.
in terms of surprises for me, there was one other surprise that it really caught me off guard that I really enjoyed was the Evil Dead remake. I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. I've loved them ever since I saw Army of Darkness first. Went back and saw the Evil Deads when I was quite young, and the fact that it was being remade, like everything else, was just an eye roll groan. But I did suck it up. I went and saw it, and I love what they did with it. I
You
thought they did a very good job, and I
you
enjoyed it.
think what made it work was the fact that the creators were in there with them at like the whole step of the way, like the original people, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell.
I think what made it work is that they didn't try and remake it. They didn't even really try and reboot the franchise. They just essentially made a standalone movie with the same tone and some of the same kind of features of the film, but not a shot-for-shot remake. Not even essentially the same story. Just the same kind of setting. Let it play it out a little differently, and ran from it from there. Great practical effects too.
Yeah,
So I enjoyed it.
I still haven't seen it, but I really really want to. I'm right with you with like the whole Evil Dead franchise. I'm absolutely heartbroken once they said that, or Bruce Campbell came out after saying that, yeah, we're writing Evil Dead
Yeah.
4, where he came out and said, no, this was the internet totally just biting a small little sound bite and extrapolating like a truth that wasn't there. I was heartbroken because I want to see Evil Dead 4 so
Oh,
much,
oh yeah.
but this but Evil Dead, like, it looks great. It looks a little humorless, which
Oh,
kind of
absolutely,
concerns
absolutely,
me.
100% serious movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's still, if it's done with, a sense of the spirit of the original movie, that I would be there.
I don't think they could have done the humor without it coming across as cheesy. I mean,
Yeah.
they did it 100% serious, but what I liked of the original movie and what I liked of Army of Darkness was there was moments in it where you actually want to stand up and cheer just because of like how awesome the scenario is. It wasn't so much for the laughs; it was like that's friggin' badass.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it did have a couple of those moments, and I think that to me was sort of the spirit of it, and that's why I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Looking towards the future with movies, the big thing is, it seems, especially with the superhero genre, that we're really trying to throw a lot of stuff in creating all of these connected universes like
Oh
the
yeah.
Avengers did. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are about the fact that, like, DC is trying to jump into this with, they're calling it Batman versus Superman or whatever, but it's pretty much a Justice League movie now. You
Yeah.
have Spider-Man
Wonder
2,
Woman. Wait, who's in Batman versus Superman as of now?
you have
We
Wonder
have
Woman.
Wonder Woman. Yeah.
I think they've talked the Flash.
I think they talk Flash, Nightwing.
Yeah, Nightwing has been mentioned.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. It just keeps growing and growing, and
And
I mean,
I'm worried.
clearly DC saw Marvel's success with creating this universe and how it spun out into television. And talking about biggest disappointments, Shield, number one
Yes.
disappointment of the year. We can get back to that though.
No.
Um,
But I mean, like, I think Shield is part of the same issue. Is like, I
yeah,
think I think what we're sort of, Avengers was a great movie for what it was.
yep,
But it was a moment. It was a moment that we were building to, and it was a moment that had been established through two Iron Man movies, a Captain America, the Hulk, and Thor. My issue with DC is they're just trying to jump in with the second movie. They're trying to already say, here is our giant expanded universe. We're not calling it Justice League because we don't have the entire Justice League
yeah.
in there. Um,
But we see this
I
formula
imagine if Green Lantern was more successful, then they would have included that as well.
yeah,
But it's still, my concern is that they haven't bought the fan loyalty yet. I think Man of Steel was, although it had its moments where I was kind of, uh, I didn't think it was the greatest Superman. Well, it was. I don't know where I rank it in the Superman movies. I don't think it was anywhere as good as The Dark Knight, which I hold up as like the pantheon of superhero movies.
yeah,
But I still feel, and I've never felt that any of the Marvel movies were tremendously amazing. Like, I never thought that the Marvel movies were these fantastic films that everybody needs to see. They're not groundbreaking or anything, but at
yeah.
least Marvel took the steps. They made the effort, and I mean, like, it doesn't even stop with DC. You have with Spider-Man now. The next Spider-Man looks like it's gonna have
Yeah.
like 5, 6 friggin' different villains, or at least
It's
they're.
basically the Sinister Six. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't want to say it's the Sinister Six, but it pretty much is.
No, because
It's
we're gonna leave that to the
Rhino,
next
it's
one.
Electro, and in the last trailer they showed the Vulture's wings and they showed Doctor Octopus's arms, and
Yeah.
it's because Fox, and well, no, not Fox, Sony knows that if they don't keep making movies based on this franchise, they lose the rights to Superman and it goes back to Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
Fox lost Daredevil this year, and it's just. But to me, it's like, once again, you're gonna throw all these characters on there. It's gonna be way too convoluted. No one's gonna understand. The only reason the Avengers worked is because you had all of these segmented projects beforehand, and that was a coming together. Like, as a plot for a movie, Avengers is kind of weak. It's just, let's stop an alien invasion. Um,
Yeah, it was, here's the excuse for you all to be together. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
But I
it
think the
was
problem
this
is,
moment that we had all been building towards.
yeah, and I think what these other companies are seeing is here's how they made a bajillion dollars.
Yeah.
Here's how they made this amazing franchise with all these spin-offs and all kinds of money, and they're jumping right to that model. They've essentially set a bar of this is how you make a bunch of money, and they're just copying that formula. They're not building to it. They're not invested in it like apparently Marvel is and sort of crafting this universe, which again I don't even 100% agree with.
Yeah.
But it seems like these other studios are seeing this as the formula now for making films. It's not even like a fan service payoff or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's just we're going to jump to this point because we have to keep
Yeah.
people interested.
Well, and the only other one where I see it actually kind of working is what they are doing with the next X-Men movie, The Days of Future Past,
Mm-hmm.
where you have, the I almost said Jean-Luc Picard. Sorry, but you have, Magneto and Professor X in the future, played by like the old generation of X-Men cast members, and then you have them going back in time and integrating with the First Class universe. And I think that is a cool idea, but they've already stated that the next movie coming from it is purely going to be a First Class generation movie, and they're going to be doing the Apocalypse storyline, which is going
Age
to
of
be,
Apocalypse, yes, one of the
yes,
greatest Marvel series of all time. So,
super exciting. I
yep,
even just like that was. Do you remember the old '90s X-Men cartoon?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was my favorite storyline. I think that
yep,
took up like half of the second season, and they just
oh
did
yeah,
such a great job with it.
yeah. It is one of the best and has one of the best endings of any comic series I've ever read. I won't spoil it, even though I
Yeah,
was 10 years old or 20 years old by this point,
it's
but
out there. It's
yeah, it's out there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I think that's a good roundup of our movies.
Yeah.
Just given our time frame, we should probably wrap things up there, eh?
You just want to wrap it up with movies, or do you
Yeah,
want?
and then come back and maybe we can do a
Yeah,
second
we could do another one for games.
for games,
All
yeah.
right. Yeah.
But I think
Okay.
games is going
So
to spawn a pretty big discussion, so.
yeah, that's true. There's no way that we can do games in a short period of time. But no, I think this worked out really well, and so that's where we are with movies.
Yep.
And we'll connect afterwards, and we'll think about when we can post another one for games. But thank you guys for watching. Anybody who is watching,
We do have a
we're
watcher.
gonna
I did get an email.
yeah, we're
There's,
gonna link we're gonna link this to our website,
yep.
and it'll be archived on YouTube. And yeah, we're not going to give up the podcast side, and hopefully we'll be able to do a podcast sometime soon. But this has been a good way to have a podcast without having a podcast.
Exactly. So you can visit us at refinegeekery.com. As of tonight, we've gone official.
Yes,
We've gone legit.
that's
And
so exciting.
yeah, and we got some exciting things coming up for 2014.
Cool. All right. Well, Mike, have a good night.
You too.
Everybody else, once again, I want to just give a heads up. Block 3 Brewery, St. Jacobs, Ontario. Go and visit them if you're in the neighborhood. If you're not, I don't know. Fly here.
I'm
There's
drinking
an airport.
Muskoka Roastery coffee. I just got it at the regular grocery store, and it's out of Muskoka, Ontario.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We'll talk to you later, Mike, and everybody else. I want to wish happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, happy holidays from Refined Geekery.
All right. Bye.